Hold on, I'm going to text. It's important to stop the job to read text.
You never read mine.
You text me sometimes? I don't know.
See?
Can you do a thing where you block people where you don't actually see their text, but they don't know it? So it looks like you're still into the friendship?
I think they would know it.
Why is it 50-50 at best if we text you, Gordo, we're going to get a text back? Why is it 50-50?
Because a text is an imposition. It is you being rude to me by demanding my attention at a time when I'm probably up in an attic running Romex through
bingo.
What? Through bingo. No, I hate, you guys don't hate text ever?
Not really.
Well, if it's from you guys, I
feels,
assume that
it
it's
doesn't
somewhat
feel like,
important, and I text you back.
It doesn't feel like someone's putting you out by requiring an answer from you.
God.
Wow.
Talking about first world problems.
I mean, you think our great-grandfathers had to stop the plow every single time they got a text, and the ox is getting restless up ahead of him as he's trying to bust the earth?
You're not your grandfather.
Oh. Okay.
Text us back. Jerk.
The Musers, the podcast, episode 10, The Assassin's Bathtub.
Welcome to The Musers, the podcast. We're three guys who've been friends for over 300 years now, and we've been doing a radio show together in Dallas-Fort Worth basically since Jesus got bar mitzvahed. So this is like a long time. But fortunately for you, we're now doing a podcast, and we'd like to introduce ourselves. I'm Gordon Keith.
I'm George Dunham.
I'm Craig Miller.
That is a bunch of pros talking right there. Okay, so on our last episode, Craig, you talked about your life's passion, which was riding the bike.
Mm-hmm.
And it was full of great storytelling and funny moments. And I hope that if someone missed it, that they go back and listen to it, because it really was fantastic. And today it falls on me to talk about the things that I love.
Can I guess?
We're going to get to that.
Okay.
Because before we get to that, I do want to say that I've always found it really fascinating to find out and hear about other people's passions, because we get this one life, and what we get in life is time. And what we spend our precious time on is very important. It says a lot about the person. And the problem is we waste a lot of time on our passions. But is that really wasted time if you're pursuing something that you love?
No, I don't think so, because it makes you, I'm thinking that it makes you happy. So,
yeah,
and
but
fulfilled.
A lot of
that's
times,
a good thing.
A lot of times if someone is married, and what makes you happy oftentimes makes a lot of people around you unhappy.
Yeah.
That can happen.
And I could see why typewriters, playing bass, and owning a tub of a famous assassin.
You're already guessing. I'm not even
be
there
seen
yet.
as somewhat odd by a partner.
It's an interesting point. I would say there's a balance there somewhere. You need to do what makes you happy in your spare time and makes you feel fulfilled in life. Or like for me with the bicycle, I have felt like it's a blessing my entire life.
Sure, it keeps you fit.
Yeah, to have this hour or 2 hours or 3 hours every day to go out and to connect with nature, to keep myself healthy, to sort through my problems. But yeah, if I were going out for 8 hours every day and not paying attention to my family, there is a tipping point there somewhere.
And we all know the weird guy that lives down at the end of the street who has no family, that collects like old dolls from the 1950s, and we all think that guy's creepy, but that's his passion.
Right? Yeah.
So it is kind of strange that how passions really define a person, because I love finding out that, hey, here's a business guy, but yet his passion is poetry or something like that, something that's against type.
Mm-hmm.
And when it came up, what is Craig's passion? I think that everyone who's ever known Craig would have guessed exactly what you would say.
Yep.
Exactly.
Now, when it comes to me, as Giorgio has often, he jumps the gun. You know, he has,
I can't help it.
I have that
little coitus interruptus. This is a problem that he has in his life.
That's why he could never play in the NFL, because he was always jumping off sides.
Always. So I'd love to hear your guesses as to what my passion or passions are.
I said typewriters, playing the bass, and owning a bathtub of a famous assassin.
Okay.
All right.
That's out of left field. I have no idea what you're talking about there.
And maybe writing. But those are my guesses.
All right. Craig, your guess.
So you are tough to nail down one passion. I would say, if I had to guess, I would just say a broader music. And then the other thing I would say would be you're interested in history, but that's also very broad because you're interested in the history of a house that might be in your neighborhood or that you're living in. You're interested in the history of people, whether it's your friends or strangers. I'm not really talking about world history. You're just interested in history of common things. And I've always thought that was kind of a passion of yours.
Yeah, and we've seen you switch from old cars to rewiring a house to lawnmower repair.
Yeah, that would be.
You seem to spend your time doing
crazy person.
Some of those things, which I think that's one really cool thing about you. You wonder about something and then you learn about it and you get good at it. And I would say very few people can do that because, like me, I get frustrated. If I'm not good at it, I just assume, well, I'm never going to be able to figure this out. So I'll just let somebody else rewire my house or fix my lawnmower.
Yeah, if somebody asked me, does Gordo have a passion, I would say it's the passion of the day. Whatever you're interested in that day.
Yes, boy, you guys are all right around it. I mean, I think none of that was wrong. Because the only way that I've ever learned it, like I love learning things. And the only way I've ever learned anything is by chasing my passion. For whatever reason, if I've been diagnosed as ADD, part of that I still have a hard time accepting, but it certainly makes sense because I wasn't good about learning stuff in school. I was really good at learning stuff that I would get interested in and then just chase to the ends of the earth learning about it. So I do follow my curiosity or my passion to the very end, to the nth degree. And so my hyper focus, which is kind of a byproduct of ADD, is you get really focused in and locked in on something, and then you can't really pay attention to the rest of your life because you get so hyper focused on it. And yes, I get on some subject that I get crazy about and chase down and learn everything I can about it. And Craig, I think you're the closest on finding the river that all these tributaries come off of, which is that I do have this obsession with backstory.
Mm-hmm.
And you touched on one that I had on my list that I was going to talk about later, but might as well talk about it now, which is that I always loved hearing about, I love talking to old people. I love hearing an old person's story. And I probably go beyond what even other people do when they hear old people's story, and that I have to then research for them and then find out. They mentioned that I don't know. Yeah, I bought my first car at this dealership that was down there, and then I have to find out, well, what was that dealership, and then
Right.
learn the name of it and the history of it, and then I learn what was this little town that this person stopped in, where they saw a house fire that they busted in and saved an old lady out of. They don't even remember
to fill them in on their history.
Right. I have to be their researcher for their life, and I don't even. There are people that I don't even get in contact with again because I don't know who they are necessarily or have contact information on them, but I have to chase down everything that was in their story because I hate that the world is a world in which people's lives disappear into the ether because their stories disappear into the ether.
Yeah.
And I've never. There's very few people. There have been a couple throughout my life that I've met and go, that really is an uninteresting person. but I mean,
thank you for knowing that about me.
There's so few. Like, it's interesting to me. I've told you guys this before. Meeting an old person and I can talk with them. I'll end up talking with them for like 4 hours and then miss my next 3 appointments that I'm supposed to go to. because I'm talking to them and I'm so wrapped up in this conversation. And at the end, all these people always say the same thing. I don't know why you want to know all this. Nothing interesting has happened in my life. Their self-assessment is always that their life is wholly uninteresting. But yet, to me, it sounds like I'm listening to an audiobook of this person's love, death, tragedy, triumph, perseverance. Person thinks that they're boring. Hey, I worked in the same job for 50 years, And to them, that sounds like a failure. And to me, that sounds like a triumph.
But I've also seen you turn that off too, where we have someone come up to us and say, "Yeah, I used to work down on that dock right down there." Yep. Okay. Thanks.
Well, that's a joke for you. Yep. Okay. Well, see you later. That's a funny joke.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah. Well, I'm not thinking about that right now. So
right. So I and you mentioned those houses. I would live I lived in an old neighborhood down by you in East Dallas. And every house that I ever lived in, I not only traced the history of the house and found every news article that ever mentioned that address, I found the people that lived in there, the kids that grew up in that house in the 20s and 30s, and tracked them down, sometimes in nursing homes where they lived, and talked about their childhood home, and heard their voices go from a dull, weary, resigned, disconnected to the world to, you mentioned their childhood house and their bedroom, and they lit up and they talked about their childhood in a way that they felt like they hadn't talked about in a while. And to see life spark back in them just with the mere memory of their life back when it was so full of vitality. And hearing them tell stories that happened in my front yard, hearing them tell about this time Santa Claus left them this on that side porch that I'm thinking about tearing down. It's like
that Santa Claus went there.
And I even had several people in their 80s that came back and visited me at those houses and walked through and told me the stories in each individual room. It was crazy.
Cool.
It was so fascinating. And I went back recently and read some of that oral history because I took notes on everything, wrote it all down for no reason. Like it's not like I'm going to publish this. It's not like it's going to die with me the same way it would die with them, and they told it. But I have all of this written out, and it's and I reread it the other night, and it was just so fascinating to hear their lives going through World War, hearing Jacqueline talk about laying up in her bed when she was, 6 years old and slept with the window open because people didn't have air conditioning back then, and hearing the paper boy yelling, extra, extra, and it was VJ Day, and that paper landing on her front lawn right in front of that window that I was looking out of, when it's just the aspect of that people's lives pass through these houses, and then you don't know that history unless you actually find those people.
So because of that, it's hard to narrow down 3 or 4 things with you because you've researched so many things, whether it's an old house, an old guitar, or something that shoots you in a lot of different directions.
So when I look back at what was kind of the first few obsessions that I remember, I do remember always liking comedy from a young age and always watching TV just the same as you guys did, Saturday Night Live, NBC, David Letterman, all that, and
Monty Python. And I became fascinated with what makes things funny. And so I really liked hearing something that tickled me and then trying to figure out, well, what made that work, and realizing, okay, look at this. This is great. The economy with which they said it, the fact that they use this word and not this word is the very thing that makes it funny, and getting up under the hood and trying to figure out, well, why is this funny to me? And what did they do here in this? And that was around the same time. This is, high school and then into college. And then in college, I got to reading literature, and that exact same thing grabbed me. I would read these stories, and I'd read a sentence that just flowed and had such rhythm and musicality to it and lyricism to it that it would read almost like poetry more than prose. And I would get up under the hood and figure out, well, what is making this sentence so great? Mm-hmm. What makes this passage so freaking moving? And writing really became, I think if I had to say what it was
My first love is stories, collecting them from old people, reading about them in a novel, the story that can even be in a joke that has the twist and turn of surprise at the end. That all is a thing that's the most fascinating to me. So writing probably is the thing that I'm most passionate about, whether it's comedy writing or serious writing. But when I started reading and getting into that, it was really strange because I kind of didn't get into comedy so much. I was much more into serious stuff, serious writing. And it's interesting to me that I had a career that kind of started in comedy on the radio. But when I got the column for the morning news, Dallas Morning News, I was a columnist for a while. All of those, I don't know that I wrote any funny columns. I think they were all serious stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I always went there for jokes and was really disappointed.
I know. George was, every time he would come back and say, I haven't laughed once.
Why do you think this is funny?
Right. George's not supposed to be funny. Oh, okay. All right.
It's a switch.
But so writing became something that was very, very fascinating to me. And still to this day, you know, I think that that's probably my primary passion, and that's what makes it the most scary of all my passions. But
is that what it is? Because I was going to ask you, why haven't you written a couple of books? Why aren't you still writing a column?
I love writing. I love the study, the art of writing. And I love having written, but I hate writing. I hate writing, but I love having written.
Right.
Is it the deadline thing that messes you up?
It's just it's the feeling of I'm going to get it wrong. It's the fraud feeling of I am wholly unqualified to do this. Particularly in that situation when I'm hired by a major newspaper and they're expecting, and they've like featured me on their in their paper.
And that's not enough to give you the confidence that you're not going to get it wrong?
No. It's the thing of, I mean, I had to use that Jedi mind trick many times on myself, because every single column that I would approach, I would say, I don't know how to do this. And I would have to go through a process of reminding myself that, wait, these people who do know about writing and publishing think I can do it.
Right.
And I just did it for the 12 weeks before this. Why is this demon whispering in my ear that you can't do it now, though? And why am I giving that more weight than I am all these other voices that are saying you can do it?
And at that point, you knew that you could do it because you had done it for many fly-by-night publications like Quick.
Yes.
But, you know, I bet a number of people who are, let's say, artists or musicians struggle with that. This is something I really want to write about. And they sit down and go, man, where do I start?
But
I can't write this song.
Here's the thing about that, Giorgio.
This picture
is that I think that just about every writer, whether it's a writer of a song or a writer of prose or poetry or comedy, they always face the terror of the blank page and think that they can't do it, and they feel wildly overmatched by the task in front of them. And they're all convinced that they can't do it, or that they're frauds, or that they've somehow gotten away with it up to this point, but I can't do it now. That is an incredibly human experience. The other incredibly human experience is being deceived that other people don't go through that exact same thing.
That is unique.
That's just it's unique to you,
right.
And that everyone else has it together, and they feel confident, but you are deficient. You can't do it.
Also, that fear can be a great motivator. I heard Chris Rock in an interview once say he is scared to death every time he takes the stage because he doesn't think he can do it. And it's that fear that motivates him to work hard, to dot all the I's and cross all the T's so that he'll know he's prepared to go out there. I've kind of felt that way in our radio career. Fear's been a great motivator for me to not look ridiculous during a segment.
Right.
So make sure I've got this in order. Sometimes I still do look ridiculous, but fear can be a tremendous motivator.
Yeah, because preparation is a great antidote to failing. You know, if you're worried about something, you have a tendency to prepare more, to work harder on it. But I mean, every single time I got ready to write a column, it was just, it's just difficult for me. It's difficult. I'm a very, very slow writer, and there are some writers that are so fast that it scares me.
Yeah.
that because I think those are real writers. But then I'll read about some fantastic writer, and they talk about it, and they're even slower than I am when I read about it, and they read about their internal struggles, and those stories make me feel less alone.
Maybe the compromise would be, I'll give y'all 5 or 6 stories. Could be 8 stories. I don't know how many. Just don't give me deadlines. But when I get passionate about writing about something, I'll send it to you. How about that?
If I said that to them,
Yeah.
the reason that wouldn't work is because I basically probably have that deal now, and
But
it's
you
been
don't
like
write
it's been like 10 years since I did a column. That's the other thing about me, is that deadlines are the only thing that will work for me. And deadlines are the thing that would frustrate them so much and that I get resentful of, because I don't want to have a deadline, but I know that I need one. And I know that I need one that's probably about 2 days before the real deadline, because
Yeah,
I will
deadlines
blow
are tough
past your
with you.
deadline.
Deadlines of things we have to get done at the station, you routinely go by those. And I understand that, because sometimes deadlines just, they freak you out. Just like, yeah, I don't know what to do about that. Even if it's a small task, or you make it in your mind where I can do it tomorrow.
Were you guys always redliners like that, where you went into the red to get a paper done right before it was
Yes.
done,
Oh,
study
yeah.
and all that?
For
Like,
school, for sure.
What causes that? Like, why is it? Because I did know some people who, like, hey, you have a project due in 3 months, and that person would, all right, I'm going to knock that out next week because I don't want to be worried about it for 3 months.
If it's something I really liked, loved, wanted to do, I would get it done early because I was excited to do it. But most schoolwork, I had no interest, didn't want to do it, and that's why I just put it off to the end. So
Yeah.
it was an interest thing for me.
You're putting off misery for as long as
Yeah.
possible. I don't want to do it. So I can even remember with some school projects thinking, okay, I'll take 10 points off.
Oh, yeah.
I'll make a B on it.
I would always budget in for the late, you know.
Yeah, and how ridiculous is
penalty.
that? Why would you penalize yourself 10 or 15 points from the beginning, where the best you can make is a 85?
I don't know. But why didn't school teach you better how to motivate yourself, or at least have discipline to do the things you don't want to do, but teach you to do the calculation of, okay, I can suffer this much, 5 units of suffering now, so I can avoid the 50 units of suffering I'm going to spread out over the next 3 months. Like, why doesn't it teach you more starkly that is the lesson?
I don't know. It's just this game that some of us would play with school of just, let's just put it off.
Because it's so much heartache with when you're late on something, they're tracking you down, you're calling you, you're getting demerits, or it's like all that stuff is all a bunch of heartache and a bunch of inner turmoil.
Yeah.
But you're choosing that over the inner turmoil of just sitting down once and doing it.
I learned a very bad lesson. I think it was our sophomore year in college, and I was taking a philosophy course, and I had a paper due that next day, and it was 10 p.m. that night, and our old roommate Skip and I are sitting there. I said, I got to write this 5-page paper, and I don't know what to write it about. So we popped open a beer, and I just started writing down the biggest bunch of BS you'd ever read. Turn it in the next day, certain I'm going to fail. Then a few days later, get the paper back, and it said A+ at the top, and then Dr. Yaffe had written in the margin, please see me about taking upper-level philosophy courses.
That genius.
So I learned you can put it off to
That's
the very
philosophy
end.
for you.
That is philosophy for you. So that taught me a terrible lesson that you can put it off to the very end and still do okay.
Yeah. And that's the way I learned to get through life. Put things off to the very last and then change the assignment to something you can do.
Yeah.
You know, I've told you guys that too, that I learned very early on that I was incapable of doing the work that other kids could do for whatever reason. I didn't know why that was, but the slow and steady winning the race, the tortoise-like pace of progression through a semester, I couldn't do that. But I could study and ace a few tests. I couldn't do any daily homework, and so I'd always budget that in. And then a lot of times when we'd have a big project, I would just have to do something that was not assigned. I would just do rather than give you a paper, teacher, is it possible that I can perform a monologue for class or change the assignment? And I would always get graded for my creativity. Oh, look at this creative way. He didn't follow the assignment, but he did this other non-traditional way of doing it, and I'd get rewarded for that.
That's where special exemption Gordo started.
That's where special exemption Gordo started. And then if you see it in my adult life, it's like it's all replicated because I ended up at a sports radio station with no knowledge of sports. So I had to create a job for myself at an all sports station once again because I wasn't good enough to do the real assignment.
That's amazing.
So I have to create my own assignment.
But because of all of that, you know a lot about a lot of things, whether it's literature or engine repair or wiring a house or just because one day you got interested or brands of guitar or what pickups sound like and what they're even called.
I'm the poster child for jack of all trades, master of none. No, just a little bit about everything instead of focused and concentrating on one thing and getting really good. I'd rather be, I guess, just a little bit good at a lot of different things.
He mentioned guitar, though, and I said music. Isn't music very near the top of your list of things you love?
You know, as I thought about music, I have a strange approach to music. I don't think that my love of music, despite the fact of when I was younger, I was much more involved with it. Bands, I was a bass player and singer in a band, and I wrote the songs of the band and was in multiple bands throughout my teenage years and early adulthood. But I don't think music became a passion kind of until later in my life, which is very strange. Like I did have an interest and a passion in performing and being special. I think that's what I was doing the band for because I couldn't be an athlete. You know, I couldn't excel in these traditional ways that boys were excelling in order to attract, girls.
Yeah.
So I knew I had to figure out some workaround. Once again, the whole concept of I have to have a workaround because I'm not good enough at face value. So that's when I started in bands, and that was a way to attract girls. And then it wasn't until I got older and got back into music that I started realizing, well, music is a fascinating bit of math that mixes with art.
It's a lot of things, yeah.
And when I started seeing that all these things in an interdisciplinary way, like, wow, the writing that I like, look at this paragraph, look at the beats in it, look at the rhythm of the language, look at the melody of the words, and it all starts seeing. It's kind of like it's almost like some form of synesthesia. A metaphor would be synesthesia. Where you can see colors and see taste and you can taste color, all that kind of stuff. When people start mixing the senses, I started seeing that math and music are interrelated, and music and writing, prose is interrelated because there's such music that's in good writing, and that just fascinated me. So I got to studying all that kind of stuff and and obsessed with that. So I got back into music in my adulthood and finally getting around to learning music theory, which I still don't understand, but I can listen to people talk about it endlessly. How, okay, now this now transitions into the Mixolydian mode. This is Aeolian, or this is whatever they're saying. I don't even understand. I'm throwing out terms I don't quite understand. But listening to musicians talk, when they can go into, oh, okay, that's more of a polyrhythm there, isn't it? Yeah, no, it's more of a herta. I think that, it's fascinating.
Go really deep with it, or just surface level with it. Just how it makes you feel, and I guess that's what you're talking about. Exploring why does it make you feel that way?
Yeah,
that's interesting.
Yeah, and trying to figure out the patterns of, okay, I like this song and I like this song, and then you write, oh, okay, I know why, because they both have the same frickin' progression. That's why.
Yeah.
That I respond to this particular interval when it's sung. It always gets me.
You've seen that comedian that runs through, I don't know, 20 songs, and they're all basically
those
the
three
same.
guys, the
Yeah,
axis
or
of
yeah.
power or whatever they call themselves.
Yeah.
All the songs that have the exact same progression.
Yeah.
But when you get into my passions, it's hard to differentiate between interest and passions sometimes. But I start looking at them. I mean, I've gone through clocks. When my grandfather gave me his kitchen clock, it's called a kitchen clock, but it sat on the mantle in the den that I listened to throughout my whole youth. That was the clock that marked the time till Santa Claus came and visited us, because we always had Christmas at my grandparents' house. And I just loved this clock. It was made in, I think, 1898, or at least that was the first marking on the back of the clock of a repairman that signed the back of it, cleaned and oiled, and the date in 1898.
You still have it?
Yeah.
Still
have
working?
it. Still working.
Wow.
Yeah. I got it restored and everything.
That's great.
But that marked all of me, and my grandfather gave me that later in his life, shortly before he died. And so I went and researched that and figured out exactly when it was made, what kind it was, how many to approximately make of this, and all that. So I chased down a lot of object history like that. But yeah, clocks, typewriters, got way into typewriters.
How many typewriters do you own?
Let's not podcast anymore right now, but
just guesstimate.
It's probably around 200.
Wow, really?
Okay.
Yeah.
That's about what I thought it was.
Where are they all?
They're all at my parents' house. I still have my parents' house. They've passed on now, but and my mom I keep imagining that the only way that I can get her to live again is to make her rise from the grave with how much I've junked up her house. She'd be so pissed.
Just stacks of
200 typewriters. What
Yeah.
do you ever go over there and bang away on them?
Every once in a while, I'll go back through them, and the thing about the things that I'm interested in is I'll get to a point where I think I'm not interested in it anymore, and it always comes back again. If I wait a few years and don't get rid of those objects, I will always get reinterested in them and have to reacquire them if I've gotten rid of them.
Mm-hmm.
So I've now learned to be a little bit more cautious with thinking a phase is over with me, because the same things that I'm interested in, I get reinterested in again and again and again. Typewriters, pens, mechanical pencils. You're starting to see a theme here. I like things that are associated in the accoutrement of writing. Books. I have so many books. I have
Guitars.
Yes, I have way too many guitars.
How many guitars are we standing at right now?
Once again, I think the podcast needs to stop right now and move forward. I don't know. It's probably 100.
Oh,
100?
gosh.
Between acoustics, basses, electrics.
Okay.
Where are they stored?
Once again, my mother's going to come back from the grave on this one.
Guitars everywhere.
Son, why don't you learn to play one guitar really well instead of a whole bunch of guitars?
I knew you
just
had
halfway well.
a lot, but I was going to guess 20.
Yeah, I wish.
Wow.
I wish. But the good news is that I don't have a taste for expensive guitars. Mine is always the same thing. I always like cheap guitars that are good values and kind of like sleeper guitars that are really great.
Not like the Jim Irsay collection.
Yes, not like his collection. And when I look at the guitars that I've gotten into, a lot of times I'll get focused on, it seems for the most part, the majority of the guitars I have were all that were available when I was a teenager and wanted a guitar and couldn't afford this one, couldn't afford that one, and wished I could have tried all of them, but couldn't. So what I've basically done is just bought all the guitars that were out back then so I could play each one of them and have a lot of time with it to decide which one I really want. And fortunately, they're cheap now because you can go in a pawn shop and find most, mid-'80s Peavy's guitars hanging on the wall.
And I know a couple of guys like you that are just in the search for that magical sound. And it's going to sound, if it's an acoustic guitar, it's going to sound good in a room, and it's going to sound good when you plug it in.
Yeah.
And I understand that to a certain extent, but after a while, it's just, especially after you plug them in and you're playing in a bar where people are talking and the sound's bouncing all over the place, I really don't think it makes any difference.
It does not matter. And here's the lesson. Here's the the caveat. This is what you ought to learn from the mistake of my life. Okay. Is that you are exactly right. In buying every typewriter that was ever made to find the perfect one. The perfect one is the one you use. The perfect one is the one that gets you to the thing that actually matters, which are the words that you can put down that will transcend time, generation. It'll be a great-grandchild that'll be able to read your words, and it sounds like you're exactly there sitting next to them. That's the most valuable thing you can do. It's not to find the perfect typewriter to get it done on. It's to get it done. And the guitar thing is the exact same way. All the time spent in going to a pawn shop in BFE out here that you read online that may have this one old thing in stock that may be the perfect one that just feels so good in your hand. That's a waste of time. That drive time would be much better spent putting together two chords and a line that's so true that it breaks your heart. But we don't do that. People like me, they'll do anything they can to keep from facing God, which is, God gave me this gift. What kind of words can I make come out of my mouth? What kind of music can I make come out of my throat? And that scares me so much to face eternity like that I'll spend an eternity going to pawn shops to find the guitar that will eventually get me in a position to actually get the assignment done. But just don't make me have to do the assignment now, Lord.
3 hours driving to Austin for a guitar, which you've done.
I have done that.
Right, he did that.
I drove all the way down to Austin to buy this one guitar and then drove all the way back and then played it next to the one that I had was wanting to compare it to and said, no, the one I already had, that was the better one, and then sold that one.
All of that to have the excuse of not having time to write that song.
Exactly. All to avoid the calling.
That's amazing the way you're wired. I don't always think that's a bad thing though, because I think you've learned a lot. Even sound advice to give other people and to give yourself that you ignore, but you're wise because of all that. I think you're very wise.
Unfortunately, wisdom comes from suffering.
Yes. Right? You've made yourself suffer a lot. Yeah.
You've suffered a lot. But, the thing about wisdom is really and truly we can read wisdom, but there is no secondhand wisdom. Like, wisdom only can come from you. You can read an idea of what wisdom is, but until you experience it, you won't know it.
Yeah.
And I had to chase down all those things to learn that they were all a waste of time. I was convinced when I was doing it, it wasn't a waste of time.
Because of that, though, you've been able to say things that are really poignant. And I'll bring up an example. Last year when I went through just awful times, losing 2 siblings and a very close member of our family, and we were in a commercial break doing our radio show, and I just said, man, I just feel like death is all around me. And Gordon just chimes in and says, yep, but so is life. And to paraphrase, he said something along the lines, yep, so is life, and it's up to us to live that life the best we can. It's like, man, how did Gordon come up with that? But it helped me. It helped me get through the day, and I've gone back to that quote a number of times, and you say stuff like that all the time, and I think that's because you have researched and read and written.
The odd thing about that is he delivered that pearl of wisdom. He's on his laptop watching YouTube videos of kitty cats playing with yarn.
Yeah, I know. He's everything.
So he's not fully embracing what he's telling you.
No, exactly not. Yeah, he's driving to Austin to get a guitar that he's not even going to play.
Yeah, I remember that day, and it's a lesson that I've have to learn. Look, we all preach sermons that are for ourselves ultimately, you know, and I wouldn't know to say that had I not been through the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Which when you feel like the world is all one way and death is all around you, it's that your mind is playing tricks on you. Your mind is cropping out the life that's around you as well.
Yeah.
And it's only when you're alive can you experience grieving a death. So, we all crop the world in ways that are misleading. And sometimes we do it in order to just get by, the I can't think about that right now element of our lives. And then, other times we recognize that, man, everybody hates me. Or you feel something like that that's an absolute, or I can't do something. And then you have to zoom out. You have to uncrop that picture to say, no, if I look at things a little bit with a wider angle, I recognize that, there's a lot of great things in my life right now. I'm not an absolute miserable failure. I get in the absolute miserable failure phase all the time. And I have to have my own dialogue inside my head to talk myself out of it. I always have to go through a process to not feel like I've been an absolute disappointment to myself. But as much as I haven't accomplished in life, I have to remind myself I did accomplish some things, and that's good. And when the final score comes down, I'm hoping that God doesn't look at all the things that I could have done that I didn't. I hope he looks at the things that I could have not done and I did.
I think that's a healthier place to be. It's a healthier point of view than the person who thinks everything they do is a massive success. They do nothing but greatness. They have outsized confidence. I think it's a much healthier place to be, to think that you've got a lot of work to do.
I know, but don't you envy those people who walk around thinking they're so great?
No, because I think we make fun of them.
And I wonder if they really do think they're that great. I think they still have those voices telling them the same thing of you're not that great, and you're
maybe.
I think you're right,
and you're not up to.
But there are a few narcissists who probably do think that they're that great.
Yeah, they're out there too.
I always wonder, what is the value of blissful ignorance? Someone who doesn't think about life or death or meaning, that they just kind of are in that I guess childlike state, not as a negative thing.
Oh, George is raising his hand.
George is raising his
slowly.
Hand. No, you're not in that category,
no,
George.
I think about it. I do, but I also kind of live like a goldfish sometimes and just kind of swim around, and it's all good, And I don't think I torture myself as much as you guys do, about worry, and I do worry about things. Even doing the radio show, as long as we have done it, 31 years together and been in radio even longer than that, I still have those mornings where or the night before, man, how are we going to get through this show tomorrow?
Mm-hmm.
You
yes.
still have those feelings. So
yeah. And why is that?
That's that inner voice.
Because we're human.
Yeah.
Before we sat down to do this podcast, I can't tell you how fearful I was. I was like, oh man, I got to talk about my life and my interest and what I love. I have no idea how to talk about that.
But it's been great.
And for some reason,
Your part's been great. My part has not been great. Your part's been great.
I've been pretty good too.
I was convinced before we sat down here that today was the day that we had finally run out of things to say to each other. Meanwhile, every time the three of us sit down, we always are able to
get something
to talk, whether it's a podcast or not. It's just we all have a great time talking with each other.
Yeah.
And talking about life. But for some reason, when it's my turn, I'm thinking, okay, this is when the Lord's going to come down and say, okay, you guys, you don't have words anymore.
Right.
We just say nothing.
No, there are no words in your lungs anymore. That's it.
I guess
it's
that's
done.
when we know it's over, when we just have nothing to say to each other or ourselves.
And it was going to be on my scorecard when he decided to do this.
All right, we'll put Gordon down for a quadruple bogey.
So the other things that I've been interested in, I made a list. Told you typewriters, told you pens, paper, different kinds of paper to write on.
That's wild.
Who makes great paper?
Never given paper one.
And I've discovered that when it comes to anything to do with writing, whether it's typewriters, pens, paper, it's always the Axis powers that do the best.
Uh-oh.
Oh, really?
I don't know why that is.
You saying you wish they would have won the war?
No, I'm not saying that. But for some reason, it's always the Japanese and Germans who are, and even in cars, when I get into
better paper.
When I get into cars, Japanese are the ones who make the paper, and I think that certain German companies do really good paper too, which is strange. I'm just saying.
Well,
keep
that's
an eye on
something.
those two. I don't know what they're up to.
Have you ever thought
Japan
a
and
second
Germany.
thing about paper in your life?
No,
I
not
haven't
once.
either.
Really? You don't get into the grit or the
Texture of
GSM?
it, or, yeah, I have no
No,
idea.
only toilet paper have I given any thought.
Yeah, that's where you don't want to go cheap.
Motorcycles. Once again, Germans and Japanese do pretty well on motorcycles. Just like
Okay, are you in a pause right now with motorcycles? Because I haven't heard you talk about
I have
it
been in
this
a
much.
pause because it's so darn hot.
Okay.
And but I believe me, I will get back into it. And I'll get back into it with a fury. There is one particular thing you mentioned earlier in the podcast.
Yep.
Bathtub?
That's it's very sensitive. It's very sensitive. I have been accused by members of the public of being quote unquote obsessed with Lee Harvey Oswald.
It's like anything else. It was a fascinating story, and you dug into it, and now you know every address where he lived here in the
All right.
Dallas-Fort Worth area. And
Now, this is the weird intersection of, like Junior said, I'm not really obsessed with history. And that's true. I know a lot of guys who that's their favorite subject. They love world history
Yeah.
and getting into historical facts and everything. This is the one little carve out to where I did get an outsized interest in the Kennedy assassination.
Here we go.
Don't say here we go. This is a little
see,
throwaway
I
at the
always
end.
thought
Okay.
I was somewhat fascinated with it until I met Gordon. I was like, man, I'm not even going to talk about it with him. He knows so much more than I do about this thing.
The reason I got into it, same as you, Giorgio, I started off with I'm a conspiracy theorist, right? Because that's what if you're interested in the assassination at all, you're interested in it because of conspiracies,
Sure.
right? That's what leads every young person
Yeah.
that would get into it. We get into it that way. And so I was like that too. And then I'd be sitting there reading the books about it, and I go, okay, well, the thing that you just said proves that there was a conspiracy. It doesn't prove it. It's just an interesting question.
Mm-hmm.
And then the more I read, I started going, wait, this is full of a bunch of bad thinking. Like there's some logical holes here. And then I started reading more about, what's the evidence for Oswald's guilt? And I started realizing, well, there's kind of a lot of it. And then the whole Jedi mind trick that usually works on conspiracy theorists is, which proves that it had to be a very high power that was able to manufacture so much evidence against him, that was able to manipulate time and space in order to frame him. And so that's why I got interested in it, was because it wasn't because, I don't know, I'm really into mid-century Democratic presidents. It wasn't anything like that. It was that, if we're going to be conspiracy theorists, let's be good conspiracy theorists. Let's not be the annoying person who's just full of an endless series of questions that we're not interested in the answer because we've already got our conclusion. I've said this before, and I think it's the most telling. I think it's one of the most telling details about conspiracy theorists is that they never argue with each other. At least when I'm around them, they don't.
Yeah.
They'll argue with the one lone gunman guy endlessly. And I've been at Dealey Plaza on the anniversary, and I've asked this conspiracy theorist who did it. It was LBJ in the car back behind me. It was who asked this conspiracy theorist. No, it was Castro and his people. They took him out for Bay of Pigs invasion and everything. Okay, well, what do you think? Well, it's clearly J. Edgar Hoover who was doing this because Kennedy had found out about his cross-dress. Whatever the theory is.
Or the guy who told you that he thought Kennedy shot himself in the back of the limo.
Yeah, who stood up and did it himself because he was afraid that Jackie O was about to find out about Marilyn Monroe. And he used the name Jackie O, too, which I didn't want to point out that he's got a little chronology problem there.
Right.
But yeah, and like they all are standing there facing me, telling me these theories that all contradict each other. But they had zero interest in disproving the other guy next to him. Why aren't the LBJ guy attacking the Castro guy? Why aren't
Right.
you guys disagreeing? Y'all both have figured it out, and the other guy's just as wrong as the lone gunman guy. Why is it all me? And then I started realizing, there's probably some other psychological factors at work here that they want to disprove just this one thing. And they don't care how muddy the waters get with a bunch of conflicting conspiracies, as long as it hurts the other side. That's what I'm for.
It was the most fascinating story in all my history books, and I was caught up in it too. And then read that book. Is it Best Evidence, or is that the one that
Best Evidence? I think that's the David Lifton book about the body, that there was surgery done on the body in the plane.
And boy, I read that. I thought, okay. And plus, it was in the '60s, and you couldn't trust the government then.
Right.
And Vietnam and all these other assassinations, RFK and MLK, and it was all somehow tied together. And yeah, so it was easy for me to buy into that. But then I met you and thought, man, he knows a lot more details than I do. I just knew a few names here and there and kept up with, but nothing like you did. And see, I think that's where your research gene did you some good, because it gave you some clarity that a lot of people don't have.
It's caused me nothing but heartache. Because conspiracy people, they just want to be conspiracy people. It's not that they're looking for, like, I love it. I love having a conversation in which I have my mind changed. That is a thrilling experience for me, to learn about something and go, man, you know what? You brought up such a good point that I think I was wrong on that. Because I always feel like I learned something. Like I'm getting closer here, right? The worst feeling in the world is to be 25, 35, or 45 and already know everything there is to know in the world.
Mm-hmm.
You're dug in. You're not changing.
You're dug in. You've got it all. You got it all figured out. So the next 40 years are going to be nothing but boredom for you on this planet because you already know everything.
So the moment I came to your side, and I don't even remember you being really into it back then. You were. This is 20 years ago. But I didn't dive into the whole Kennedy thing like you guys did, but I always thought, yeah, it sounds like there could be a conspiracy theory that makes some sense to me here or there. But we had Bert Shipp on our show, who was a veteran reporter for a Dallas TV station, and he covered the assassination. And he said, we just had our 40th anniversary where all the reporters who covered that event get together and we talk about it. We do this every 10 years. This was the 40th anniversary. We did an anonymous poll. Everybody was asked, do you think Oswald acted alone, or do you think there was something else? And of the 40 or so journalists that were there, as he mentioned, all of us skeptical by nature because we're journalists, it was unanimous, the anonymous vote, unanimous that Oswald acted alone. And when I heard that, I thought, well, it's pretty clear then. Not one skeptical journalist still holds out the thought that, yeah, it was Cuba. It was the U.S. government.
Right.
It was a suicide.
And hey, there are questions about it, and I think that all those questions chase down the answers. I'm all for that. I want all the documents to be released, and I think that there may be something that would, if some evidence came out that would change my mind, I would welcome it. I'm not dug in on lone gunmen. I'm just saying that the stuff that people are saying proves conspiracy doesn't prove it. It sounds like a lot of it is conjecture. A lot of it is you connecting dots that don't connect by logic. It's connected by will, by human will, your human will to say this is related to this. So I'm up for having my mind changed on it. We had a special circumstance here in this particular case that I got interested in because it happened in the town in which we worked and lived for so long. I mean, the fact that that world event that changed world history and world direction happened right here in our backyard in Dallas, Texas is amazing to me.
Less than a mile from where we're broadcasting right now.
Right.
Yeah.
And once again, combining passions and interest, I got interested. Well, where were the places he lived? Not just where did this event happen, but where was he? Where were the humble little hovels that his mind was churning in?
Mm-hmm.
That led to this world changing. I don't know what you're talking about. 602 Elspeth, 214 West Neely. Actually, it's maybe North Neely. I can't remember. 1026 North Beckley. That's the one. That was the rooming house. So going to all those and then walking through those. And was so interesting about walking through those is sometimes you're walking through a place that's still an apartment building people still live in.
Mm-hmm.
And you're seeing this mixture of life is going on now without a thought of what happened back then. These people are in lower income housing in a depressed area. They're just trying to make it day to day. They're not at all concerned or even aware of the historical significance of the apartment that their kids are tearing through right now. They're living life because life goes on. That's what happens to life. That's it's the great tragedy and hope of our human existence. It's the tragedy of the person who means the most to you in the world dies, and the insult that the world would go on after that. It's so insulting, but yet it's also the greatest gift ever, that life goes on after you lose a leader, a beloved leader, or a beloved spouse, or your brother, George. You just couldn't imagine life beyond him, but yet there is life beyond him.
Yeah, I know. And it's a long way to say that you saw a bathtub and you went, wow, Lee Harvey Oswald used to bathe in that?
I want that. So, yeah, for those that don't know, I did end up buying Lee Harvey Oswald's old bathtub from one of his apartment buildings they were tearing down.
And as much as we all give you a hard time about that, if you had not done that, that bathtub would be in some landfill.
It would be in a landfill, yes. And I think, I can't remember what I paid the woman for it. It was like about to be torn out and thrown away. So I think I probably paid her $100 or $200 for the bathtub, the bathroom doors, the little drawer that his daughter used to sleep in that they used to use as a bassinet, him and Marina. All that stuff was very cheap. And her little vanity, the built-in vanity that Marina used.
And is that at your parents' house as well?
Once again.
Good Lord.
Right next to a mess of guitars and typewriters.
An assassin's bathtub.
He stores some guitars and typewriters in it. Have you ever, I think I've asked you this before, have you ever contacted the 6th floor museum and said, do you guys want this? Because it is historic. This is what his bathroom looked like.
It is. I've not, is the answer. I've not contacted.
I bet they would not want the bathtub.
I don't think they would either. They're trying to thread a needle with that 6th floor museum. They want to make it about Kennedy, his legacy, and also about what happened, because what happened is what people are interested in, what happened in Dealey Plaza. But they don't want to be in any way glorifying the man who took the man's life.
They're going to leave that to you.
Yes. I have to open up my own my own spite 6th floor. But they do have a very interesting and personal piece of Oswald memorabilia there. I don't know if it's still there, but for many years, they had his wedding ring displayed in a glass case with the light shining down on it and everything, which those are the items that interest me, the personal items of Oswald, not to the glory of Oswald. To me, what's interesting about him is that he was a man just like you and me. He wasn't this international, highly trained, almost robot-minded international assassin. He was a guy who was trying to patch together a living for his family, who also had these delusions of grandeur, hoping that he could change the world, and he felt the world was unjust. And he saw a way to shake up the world, and he did this, and he did it on a lark. He did it after the most personal of things happened to him, which was that he was trying to reconcile with his wife. She didn't want to reconcile with him. She even said in the testimony, he would have come to me the next day and he knew I would have said, yes, let's get back together. But I wanted to give him one more day of twisting in the wind because I didn't think he had treated me right.
Wow.
And that morning after she said that she wasn't ready to get back together with him, was when he took that wedding ring and he put it in a teacup on the top of her dresser where she was staying, which was away from him. And all the money he had in the world was like $186 or something. And he put that up on that dresser, and then he left that day, and everything changed.
Can you imagine what she thought watching the news that night?
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Wow.
That day when it happened. That's the part that fascinates me, was them as a human being that chose absolute evil and horror, but it came out of something that was familiar to all of us, just struggling to pay your rent, struggling this way, struggling that way, struggling with your personal relationship. And he goes and he reads a few days before that the president of the free world is going to pass right up under his window. And he had a gun, and he had already tried to kill one political leader, a right-wing leader here in Dallas named General Walker. And the bullet hit the window pane and deflected off. And General Walker wasn't hit, but by shrapnel. And that happened in April. And Oswald killed Kennedy, of course, in November with the same rifle that he shot General Walker. But we didn't even find out about the Walker thing until after he had been captured by the Kennedy thing.
Dang.
And it was only Marina, the very wife that had rejected him for an extra day, that she said, hey, I think you ought to know about this too. They found the note he had written to her that night he went to go kill General Walker. And she said, he's done this before.
Whoa.
So,
Man.
yeah, it's crazy reading about their lives together and how that led up to this. But see, that's the thing, is that Oswald remains such a mystery to all the conspiracy theorists who he's like this, almost like a Rorschach test, blot, like an ink blot, right? And you project whatever you want to on him.
Yeah.
But if you actually read about his life, it's so far from this masterful international trained in Russia to come over here and do this. He was a guy who shot Kennedy with the only weapons he could afford, which was this $12 rifle that was a surplus from the Italian military back in 1941, I think it was. He led such a patchwork existence.
Yeah. Fascinating.
He remains a mystery, but he clearly remains a passion of yours.
not a passion. My
just
passion,
listen to the last 15
20
minutes.
my passion is just trying to get people to think about it in a new way. But yes, guilty. All right, so we've covered some of my interest, and I think that's enough of them.
That's amazing. That's a lot of interest. That's a lot of passion.
My greatest interest in life right now is getting the hell out of here.
Okay,
So,
we can do that.
yeah,
Pretty
yeah,
easy.
We can do that.
You're passionate about wrapping up the podcast.
So passionate, Craig. I want to understand the mechanics of wrapping up a podcast. All right, thanks to you guys, and thanks to our listeners. We get more and more listeners all the time, including our great contingency of Singapore listeners. We're always really high on our Singapore listeners.
Thank you.
Thanks to Peter Welton for our producing role that we've bestowed upon him that he does so very well. And next, Giorgio. Do we have Giorgio's coming up next?
Yes, when we come out with part 3
Yes,
of
part
this
3
series,
of this
things
series.
that we
next.
love, it'll be George's turn.
Yes, and George will tell you all about his obsession with Marina Oswald. Ooh,
It's
we
kind
look
of
forward
strange.
to that.
It is kind of strange.
Good night.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Good morning.
luck.
Yay! You made it all the way to the very end. Thank you so much. That means a lot. Don't forget to follow or subscribe on whatever your podcast player is. That's a big deal. You can also email the Musers, themuserspod@gmail.com. The Musers, the podcast, will be back Wednesday and is a Tired Head production.